it play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Mathew here from MiniWarGaming.com. And why do I love Stormcast Eternals? This is why I love Stormcast Eternals. They are power-armored forces of good that have a troubled past and a troubled present and definitely a troubled future. And their narrative is rich and their heroics are known throughout the mortal realms. And of course, after you finish watching this video, make sure you go and check out the battle reports and the links below in the MiniWarGaming vault of Stormcast Eternals. Our studio army of the Hammers of Sigmar, Stormcast Eternal Stormhost, is currently at about 7,800 points. We've got a bunch more being painted right now, but it won't be done for a couple more months. That'll bring it up to roughly 10,000 points, rounding out all the stuff that we don't have quite enough of. But we definitely have enough here to be able to play a lot of variety with what they can do, old and new. We've got a ton, around 20 Liberators right here. Unfortunately, no special weapons. We're adding those in. And we have all of our Mighty Paladins, our Retributors, our Decimators, and our Protectors. We have a lot of our Dracoline Riders, our Vanguard in the front, and then our Mighty Dracoth Riders. These can be Fulminators or Concussors or Decimators, or whatever they're called, depending on which weapon that you give them. And the new Sacrosanct Chamber that's been opened, we got our huge amount of Sequitors because they're just better Liberators. And Castigators, which are not as good as the Judicators, but you know, they can still superpower themselves and become better if they really want to. We've got our Judicators in the back here. Definitely need more of these to rain death from afar. More of our Vanguard crossbowmen as well in the back with their Aetherwing companions beside them. And the mighty, underpriced ballistas of the Sacrosanct Chamber that are terrifying, especially with the Lord Ordinator nearby. Have our mighty Evocators of the Sacrosanct Chamber. And then all sorts of characters. We've got Lord Relictors, we've got the Knight Heralders, we've got Knight Incanters, Lord Celestants, we got pretty much all the different unnamed characters except for the Lord Exorcist, which we're getting added. And we still need to add all the named characters in, which we're working on right now. And the very scary Prosecutors who rain death from afar, but are very mobile, so are good at grabbing objectives as well. And the scariest part of the entire Stormhost, we've got our Celestant Prime and a Lord Celestant on Mighty Stardrake. Very few of these exist. The Stormcast Eternals and I have an interesting relationship, a history, because when I first got into Age of Sigmar, the Stormcast Eternals seemed kind of boring. In Warhammer 40k, I'm not an enormous fan of the Space Marines. I think they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, except that they're just kind of boring. As I read more of the novels, that's given more life to the Space Marines of Warhammer 40k. But interestingly enough, as soon as I read the first novel that included Stormcast Eternals, which was Plague Garden by Josh Reynolds, which is all about the Hallowed Knights Stormhost, it instantly made me fall in love with them. And then on top of that, reading Soul Wars, also by Josh Reynolds, which was a few different Stormhosts, not just, I don't even know if the Hallowed Knights were in that one, but there was a few different Stormhosts, all in the realm of death and also in the realm of heaven. It talked more about their forging process and how awful it is, and how Sigmar is not happy with it, but he's kind of had to rush it because the Age of Chaos was just carrying on for too long. But the problem is he can't be in every forging, so he created the Sacrosanct Chamber to help with that. But even then, they're still searching for the solution, because each time a Stormcast Eternal dies, their soul and their armor are transmuted to lightning energy, to Azerian energy. They're sent back through the etheric void. They go back to the realm of heaven. They go into these huge vats, these storing containers, where they live excruciating lives while they wait to be reforged. It talked about the Lord Arcanum walking by and hearing the screams of the souls inside of these. That's now they're not like fully aware of themselves at that point, so that's a bit of a mercy, I guess. And then they documented the reforging process as they basically poured the soul onto the forge of Apotheosis, and some of that soul, as it poured on, would filter away and be gone forever. And so that would be some of their memories or some of their personality or some of who they are. And then they would reforge them in this horribly painful process that the Stormcast Eternals, they shudder to even think about. And that creates a new Stormcast Eternal. Some of the spirits actually resist this and try to fight back and not get reforged because they're very unaware of themselves. And that's why we have some of the Sacrosanct Chamber are there actually to fight those spirits and put them in submission so they can be reforged into Stormcast Eternals. So it's not super happy. It's not, hey, I get to be a Stormcast Eternal, look at me, I'm immortal. It's like every time they get reforged, they lose a bit of themselves. And Sigmar is looking for an answer to this, which is why he sent some of the Stormcast Eternals into Shadespire. Unfortunately, they haven't come back yet, because maybe there's some answers in Shade Glass or in the mysteries that are trapped in that city that has been cursed by Nagash. But there's just a lot of richness to them. The different storm hosts have a lot of different personality, and they're much more human than Space Marines. Not to knock Space Marines, of course, because I think they have their place, and I kind of like how they're inhuman as well, because you have their human counterpart with the Imperial Guard. But here, it's like they're struggling with something else. They're struggling to remember who they were, and they're struggling to be loyal to Sigmar, and to be loyal to the tasks that they had. And we've learned that they can fall to corruption, not necessarily individually while they're Stormcast Eternals, but when they die, their souls can be trapped and then corrupted. We've seen that happen a couple times. No, I'm not going to give any spoilers of where that happened, but let's just say read Plague Garden and read Soul Wars, and you'll see what can become a Stormcast Eternal soul that is trapped by another one of the gods, and it's not very happy. But there's because there's that turmoil behind them, it gives them a rich background, rich history. How they play on the table too is fun. They are not a super elite army, because you can choose to bring them still in relative numbers, but they are an elite army. And so you get to go in there with nothing has one wound, except maybe the Gryph-hounds and the Ether Wings, but all of the main Stormcast Eternals are going in there with multiple wounds, with good armor. Some of them can hit really hard, others are really good at defending. They have good synergy amongst them if you use them properly, but they can also they're good for a beginner as well, because you just throw some Liberators and Judicators into the mix with a Lord Celestin, and you got yourself a starter army. And so they're a good scaling army. They're not complicated to learn, but they still have a lot of nuances to all the different storm hosts you can bring, all the different relics that are available to them, the lores, the spell lores that are available to them now that they have the Sacrosanct Chamber, really add another depth of power and tactics to what they can do. The fact that they have the basic rule that half of them can basically teleport onto the field from the realm of Azir gives them some very strong tactical abilities, because they're not actually super mobile overall, because a lot of them are slower, except for the riders, of course. And because of how much Games Workshop has paid attention to them, they have a very wide breadth of coverage, so that you have all sorts of different kinds of armies within an army. Whereas other armies, you're kind of still stuck with one or two playstyles. The Stormcast Eternals give you probably half a dozen at least, depending on how you want to approach them. So it's nice to be able to have those options when you're collecting an army. And I doubt that we're going to see them slow down supporting the Stormcast Eternals. They'll always be the main one. And while some people might have a problem with that, saying, oh, I wish they covered some of the other armies, one thing that I always try to remind people is, remember, they're trying to make money, and the more money they make, the more they can cover those other armies. And so if they were to do less Stormcast Eternals, then they probably wouldn't make as much money, and then they wouldn't be able to then invest in expanding the line in other areas. So think of it that way before you complain the Stormcast Eternals get too much love, and think, you know what, I want them to get love because then Games Workshop makes more money, and that makes them put more money into Age of Sigmar, which means, of course, they'll do more Stormcast Eternals, but that'll also give them more capital to expand on the other lines, as we're seeing them do at quite the pace at this time. So I love Stormcast Eternals, lore-wise, how they play on the table. Using them in narrative campaigns is interesting, which always tells me just how rich their lore actually is. And just the way they look, definitely one of my favorite non-destruction armies out there. And that is why I love Stormcast Eternals. Let me know what you think of Stormcast Eternals, good or bad. Go ahead, rip on them if you want. Tell us how much they're awesome. Tell me how much they suck. I don't care. Leave a comment below about that. And then make sure that you go and watch the battle reports that we have in the MiniWarGaming Vault. There will be some in the links below. That's not even all of them. We have a lot of Stormcast Eternals on this channel. And if you're not a Vault member, well, this is your chance to become one. You can click on any of those below, get a free 7-day trial, get instant access to all those battle reports and thousands more, narrative campaigns for Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k, both of those, and many, many other videos. This is what actually lets us run this business. The YouTube revenue, unfortunately, is a small amount. The MiniWarGaming Vault is the majority of our revenue. So thank you to our Vault members for allowing us to have collections like these and make videos and studios and battle reports and live the dream. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the Vault.